Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you. I'm Frank Finelli. I was a Sloan Master's from 1986. I can't believe it's been 30 years, but some things change and some things don't change, like getting started exactly on time at the Sloan School. But anyhow, we're kind of close enough. I'm a managing director with the Carlyle Group in Washington, D.C., and was really blessed through my experience here at the Sloan School and delighted to be back here for this reunion weekend. I'm also delighted to introduce Doug Reddy, who's a senior lecturer here at the Sloan School. Doug is the founder and CEO of the International Consortium for Executive Development Research. You'll see that listed up there. And they're involved in looking at talent management, leadership development, and how to make organizations really click in very complex situations all around the world. Doug has worked with some of the largest organizations and companies around the world. You'll see some in Ford Motor Company, Four Seasons, Hess Oil, PwC, Unilever, RBC Financial, Samsung, so on and so forth. And it's really great to have him here to talk to us about some of the research they're doing at ICEDR, where they talk about kind of, I think of it as the 3 Ps, purpose, performance, and then people, how you make those all work together to improve the effectiveness of the organization. And I can say, you know, from my experience in private equity, there's really nothing that's more important than organizational effectiveness in terms of creating value across your portfolio. So, Doug, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today, and we're delighted to have you here.
Good.
Let's get Doug a hand.
Okay, good. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, all right. Let's just see if we have it going. Okay, good. Well, welcome, and I'm delighted to be here as well. Thanks so much, Frank, for that really nice introduction. So let's get underway. We're going to dive right into it. I'm actually going to give you about an hour-and-a-half version of a 2-day executive program that I do. In fact, I'm doing it this coming Monday and Tuesday. So I'll try to cram it in, and you understand that from Sloan. Try to figure out getting as much in as you can. So I'll do my best to be able to get through it, but I invite all kinds of talk and discussion and questions along the way, and that's what makes an executive program fun. So let's just get started. This is a little cottage that we bought a couple of years ago, and it's in Lexington. I live in Lexington, Mass. But this cottage might as well be in Provence or something. You know, it looks as though it could be somewhere in the south of France. A realtor friend of mine called me up one day and said, Doug, this is a little cottage. It needs everything, but it doesn't get any more charming than this. That's when I should have run. So I knew it was but who's done a fairly major rehab project in their, yeah, okay. So oh, sorry, so I'm always perfect with timing. What's top of mind for you when you're thinking about doing an historic preservation or a big rehab project?
You look like you didn't do a rehab project.
Right. Yeah, okay. So trying to preserve the heritage of the past, but then what else is on your mind as you're going through something like this, other than not running out of money? Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. How to manage the process, how to manage the stakeholders in the process. Lexington, at least in US standards, is one of the more historic towns in the country. And so, as you would imagine, the Historic Commission and the Historic District, as well as all the neighbors who had lived there for 50 years, became critical stakeholders in the process to make sure. Anything else? Yeah? Plumbing. That's right, yeah. In so many ways, plumbing, yeah. So we have, that's right. How do we make sure we have it, right? But yeah, looks beautiful on the inside, but then on the outside. But as I went in, everything, and I mean everything, needed a transformation. And it struck me, and maybe I'm just too focused on the kind of stuff I do for a living, but it struck me that this is a nice little metaphor as we're trying to transform our organizations and understand what we need to do to preserve what made our organizations great to begin with, but then make it fit for the future at the same time, including plumbing and the infrastructure that you need to do. So as you're underway with something like this, you have to say, well, how do I keep the core but make it livable at the same time for the future? So transformation is a really, really scary project as you're beginning to look at that inside your own organizations and your companies. But we have no choice. I mean, we have to think about how we're going to move forward to build what I like to call game-changing organizations. The closer you get to a transformation, the scarier it starts to feel, because you start to think, you can't go halfway with something like this. You've got to make sure that you're doing it right, yet at the same time making sure that you're trying to think about what you need for making this a robust organization for the future. So I'd like to look at that as a quick little metaphor to help us think about how do we go beyond simple value creation in our organizations. How do we go beyond just making a difference? There's lots of those there. What I studied, and this came about particularly in the aftermath of the global financial crisis, was I wanted to find out what it was that made some organizations come through the financial crisis, not only in a way that they survived, but they actually came through, in most cases, stronger than before. And so that's what led to this piece of research. And I went around and looked at about 40 different companies, came up with maybe 5 or 6 examples that I wanted to take a look at in a little bit more depth. So this might be a good excuse for you to say hi to your neighbors who's around here. I don't like to fast forward past buzzwords. So when I use the term game-changing organizations, why don't you just spend literally 1 minute and say hi to who's next to you and say, what's your definition of a game-changing organization? Give it a go. Just 1 minute and we'll come back together.
Yeah, you guys try to do this all the time.
Okay. All right, I just want to give you a minute, mostly to say hi to somebody next to you. That's half of what's fun about Alumni Weekend. What did you come up with? What are some of the, if you had to kind of lay out a few characteristics, a few terms when, say, I'm working for a place that's a real game changer. What? Yeah, go ahead.
Proactively adapt and change, or see the need for change.
Yeah, okay, so looking out into the future, so seeing the need for change. What else? Yeah?
It has a well-defined purpose, and it adapts to whatever is coming from.
Okay, all right, yep. So it knows who it is, it knows why it exists, it kind of knows what hole would be left in the world if it weren't there, and from there it can really flourish. Okay, what else? Yeah, go ahead.
Compensation.
Pardon me?
A very good compensation.
Yeah,
system.
good compensation system. Okay, yeah. All right, private equity? Are you? Yeah. Okay, that's okay. That's good. All right, yeah, yeah. So, all right. So we pay our folks really well. That's going to be no. That's great. Yeah, up top.
Generally forward a change in a belief system or a change in a product.
Yeah. Okay. So something that can really be a big game changer in terms of its innovation making capability. Yeah. Okay. Other things? Yeah. Yeah. All right. I think you guys got it. I mean, you know, it's things that an organization that stands out. You know, you know, with people who raise their hand, who think differently, who kind of swim against the stream, folks that think in a different way, who are able, who see out into the future, but also are equipped to be able to actually execute, and that enables them to create differentiated value. You know, so that they stand out, they're able to just think differently in their organization. They're beyond simple value creators, and when I talk to most of these people, they defined their organization as a special place. This has a unique signature in this place, and so there's a lot of things that we want to think about. What I like to then do is sort of pivot from, okay, well, if we're going to be a part of building a game-changing organization, what is it that game-changing leaders begin to actually do? What is it that they do? How do they think? And can we decipher the kind of culture code of game-changing organizations? What are the things that actually comprise them, and what is it that the leaders do that maybe makes a big difference? So what I found is that these game changers do 5 things incredibly well, and I'm just going to go through each one of them quickly for you and begin to think about with you, you know, what it is in your organization that you can do. And I don't call it exactly that, but they are terrific at building a collective ambition, and it starts with a sense of purpose, exactly as you were talking about. In fact, I'm doing a class on Monday with the CEO of RBC Financial Group, and they have really taken to this notion of collective ambition. Stems from a Harvard Business Review article I wrote a couple of years ago in the aftermath of this. And it's how we lead with a sense of purpose, but then also bring the organization together. So they're terrific at crafting and implementing this collective ambition. They know they can't do it alone, so they build a kind of the next cultural DNA factor. They build a collective leadership capability. They're not doing it on their own. It's not the I'm the smartest person in the room type of thing. They ask lots of questions, and they make sure that they kind of delegate authority and accountability and create a climate of mutual investment. Third, they do drive innovation and growth, as you said, up there, but they do it through discipline, which is kind of an interesting, you know, it's not this wild-eyed place, but there's a lot of discipline in the organization, and through that discipline, they're able to actually drive innovation and growth and live to fight another day. When margins get tight, when, you know, you take a look at the oil companies now, you know, they're modifying their business models to be able to have a viable business model at $28 a barrel versus $110 a barrel. It's not an excuse, you know, it's not good enough to create an excuse to say we're losing money because of externality. So they align what I like to call promises made with promises kept. Meaning, when they create that sense of a collective ambition and that purpose statement, that they actually do the compensation, the rewards, the metrics, and the milestones. So if we say we're going to be an innovation leader in our industry, we better reward innovators in the organization. And so instead of just, you know, lots of hollow talk. So that creates a culture of authenticity in the organization, makes people trust it, and say, okay, this is the place that I was sold to come join, and it's the place that I want to stay at because it walks the talk. And then finally, they're incredible talent factories. So these places really understand how to actually acquire, source, acquire, attract, develop, nurture talent. They're the best of the best in this area. So it's these 5 things that game-changing leaders are incredibly good at to keep their organizations in a continuous state of revitalization and renewal. So let's take a look. Let's go through one at a time with each one. So we'll start with this idea of collective ambition. Okay, there's probably 25 things here. You'd probably recognize most of these things as issues that are confronting your organization. But if you live in an organization where your CEO and top executive team articulates each and every one of these things as a top priority, what happens? What happens in the organization? I know none of us work for companies that have CEOs like that, but what happens when we're every single thing that comes up on the terms of is absolute top priority? Yeah.
Yes, I think everything becomes also the lowest priority, or people go back to their old system. I don't understand what you're doing, so I'm going to go back to what I used to do.
I'm going to duck my head. This too shall pass. Flavor of the month, whatever thing we want to call to it. What else happens though? That kind of deer in the headlight stuff definitely goes on, but what else?
You lose focus. You try and focus on everything.
Yeah.
And you end up with not committing to anything.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good to know. We begin to lose focus on what happens. What else happens? Yeah. Go ahead.
People get confused and change their own direction. Whatever they think is
Yeah.
best for the company.
Right. Yeah. So it's what I call initiative champions start to emerge. Political warfare starts to emerge. Silos start to harden. And when each and every one of these organizations, most organizations today, particularly professional and financial services, are trying to wrap the capabilities of the entire company around their customer requirements into the future. When you've got hardened, thick silos with initiative champions running them, with a zero-sum type of mentality that's behind the operation, you're not going to have integrated solutions that you're going to deliver value to your customers, right? So this is beyond nothing happens, a lot happens, and a lot of it is pathological. So we need to say, it's not that these things aren't important, it's just how do we tell a story around them? How do we begin to say, let's kind of factor analyze these things in a way so that we can reduce all these variables into a story that begins to make sense. And so that's what we want to take a look at because it's evident and it exists in every single organization. So if I'm doing this for, later on this month, I'll be doing this for with Sloan for an individual company. In 1 hour, I can go to most companies' websites and fill up this starburst chart. It's what I call a starburst chart organization. 1 hour, I'll be able to take all the buzzwords that exist inside and fill in those starbursts with your own company's kind of buzzword of the month, and then begin to say, all right, just think about 2 layers down in the organization, what it feels like to live here and to work here and to try to lead here. And it's pretty telling, so it becomes one of these things that we need to pay attention to this. This is not, we're okay, the other companies are kind of in the dark. We all need to face this because we all have this as a challenge. So we want to think about this as our road home. How do we begin to think about, what we're going to do that's going to actually make a big difference and help to bring about a certain level of clarity to folks that are confused. And they're confused because there's just plain old too many things going on. There's initiative overload in most organizations and lots more. So what I began to talk with a lot of these companies about is what is the thing that actually drives this notion of being a game changer? Your statement was absolutely right, and each one of them said, purpose should be at the heartwood of our company. It should be at the heartwood of our business model, and from there, a lot of things will go. The danger now is that purpose has become also one of the buzzwords of the month. At Davos this year and at Davos last year, it was the #1 panel of CEOs all talking about purpose. Well, my submission is that that is not enough. Purpose is great, and you can have a sexy purpose statement, but if you stop there, you're in big trouble. And because, you know, the organizations, your shareholders, your customers want value that's associated with a very powerful purpose statement. So the really great companies add another element to it, which is performance. Both long-term vision and short-term day-to-day operational realities. So it's purpose with performance that really begins to matter, so that it creates a certain edge inside the organization. I'd argue that's not even enough. And so the truly great ones add a third dimension, which is creating the climate and the principles that are going to guide the organization, where there's a line of sight between the external environment with your customers, your communities, your stakeholder groups, and the internal feel of the place inside the organization. So what that translates into is the great game changers are purpose-driven, performance-oriented, and principles-led simultaneously. And so that is the leadership challenge, I think, that faces most organizations today, is how can we create these three meta capabilities simultaneously so it doesn't become this constant trade-off. You know, easier for folks like me to say this, unbelievably hard to do. So I'd like to ask again, you can either turn to the same partner or to a different one, or turn around and back, create a bigger group. Why is this so hard to do? Purpose-driven, performance-oriented, and principles-led simultaneously. Why is it so amazingly hard for most companies to actually pull this off and do it? And if you don't think it's hard, I'd love to hear that argument as well at the same time. Okay, go ahead. Just 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll bring you back. Okay. So when I get to the video, what do I have to do to?
Seeing the command and control.
Okay, all right. What do you think? Purpose-driven, performance-oriented, principles-led, all at the same time. You're going to tell me it's not hard to do, right? No, why is it so hard to do?
It's so hard to do it. I don't want to say this because they'll put your job in jeopardy.
It's my life's work, so just, don't make fun. Pardon me?
I think it's the genes.
The genes.
So there's a limited number of people who've been born with the ability to lead and have vision and to be able to pull all these things together. There's some people who can go through life and follow a textbook and do it methodically, but I think from my experience of working with a lot of people,
Yeah, that there
some
are.
people, they just have it and some people don't.
Okay, all right, okay. That's not as nuts as it sounds. There's partially nuts, but there's actually partially research that shows that about 15% of leadership actually is sort of hardwired into one's DNA. Darwin and others kind of did that research, but there's about 85% that can be learned, or else we'd all be out of business here. So, but no, take your point, and it's very hard. I've done a lot of work with Korean chaebols, and they totally subscribe to that philosophy that the CEO is destined to lead, and so. But let's assume that we can learn some of this stuff. What do we think? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, we were chatting inside group. Immediately said, we don't want to talk about that question. We want to talk about something else.
Why not? Why not? Go ahead.
And it was the perfect metaphor.
Our job is to make you feel good at Alumni Weekend, so you can talk about whatever the heck you want. So that's right.
That's service, so
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that purpose. I want to talk about some other purpose.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about those principles. I have some other.
I have my own.
Right. So it's this sort of cacophony of.
Yeah.
And I think the more spirited and energetic an organization, the more likely
That you're going to have.
the
Yeah.
people sort of bring to it a lot of, so there's some, I don't know, talent or witchcraft or something in the,
Yeah.
how do you kind of coalesce all that into something that can bring clarity without people feeling stifled?
Yeah. I mean, I've never met a CEO and often a member of a top executive team who is without ego. And so, part of that is really great. I mean, they have a good sense of self. They have a lot of self-confidence. They know who they are. And so, therefore, their opinions are usually really strong. And so, as you're trying to put together a top executive team, you actually want people who are going to argue with you, who are going to have a point of view, who are going to push back on you a little bit, and who have their own view of where the organization should go. In fact, Dave Mackay, the CEO of RBC, is going to tell that exact story on Monday in terms of when he took over. How did he create an agenda that could actually bring together 8 very powerful, incredibly rich already people who are working to gratify, not only themselves and their egos, but their own customers, and they could maybe care not as much about the other business units. So there's lots that one needs to think about those stakeholders, not unlike with my cottage refurbishing we're going through. What do you think, though? Yeah, go ahead.
We found that these 3 are very difficult to put together in a sequential way. You have to put it together all together. It's a long run. It's a marathon instead of a sprint.
Yeah.
And it's not the right path. It's a curvy path. Difficult to know if you're going in the correct direction at any given moment. And then you have certain pressures, maybe the owners of a private equity or whatever that owns your company, that will put pressure to achieve short-term results.
Yeah, that's right. Recently I was working with a very large pharma company, and the CEO was kind of taken with this idea and the HBR and collective ambition, and he created this really nice purpose statement, and everybody's teary-eyed in the organization as we're doing the class. And then one woman raises her hand, and and she goes, "What does this have to do with the pressure that I'm feeling from your executive team to hit my sales numbers in Thailand?" Right? that's the essence of this issue, is that, you know, we can have a great purpose statement, we can have a beautiful set of principles, yet sometimes the edge of creating performance creates what seem to be unresolvable conflicts that come into play, embedded tensions that exist. And that's the essence of the leader's job, is to not throw those things under a rug, but you're also not going to solve many of those problems. But, you know, I'd submit it's the artful reconciliation of where you are at a certain point in time that enables you to say, we're still going to live by our principles, but, you know, we need to hit our numbers. And that means if we have to reduce you know, the employee population in the organization, we're going to do it in a way that is in keeping with our core values and our guiding principles. But that's very difficult to do. And it makes people a lot of times feel as though, well, this isn't the place that I joined, and so I'm out of here, you know. And so all of these embedded tensions, I just have a few here for us to think about. You know, we all talk about this notion of continuous revitalization and renewal, and yet, you know, we're in change overload in most organizations. People are so stressed out. This whole notion of well-being is starting to overtake organizations and saying, you know, we need to de-stress this place because people are just losing it in terms of, you know, so we're saying we want constant change and revitalization, yet at the same time, people are struggling for a certain level of touch points where they can feel as though, okay, you know, I know what's going on. We're talking about, you know, increasing globalization, well, at the same time that we're all trying to figure out how to simplify doing business with our customers. So that's another tension that's faced. You know, we're talking about continuous innovation. This is particularly true right now with financial services firms. You know, I happen to spend a lot of time in large financial services firms. They're saying, you know, we want to innovate, but because of maybe our past behavior, we're now getting crushed by regulations that are making, you know, innovation very difficult to actually implement inside. You know, so we're trying to optimize value for our customers, yet at the same time to do that with less and less and less resources. Rationalization and optimization at the same time. That's another pressure that we're feeling. And virtually all business you know, value chains are being digitized these days at the very time when people are really, really searching to connect up some sense of individual meaning with organizational purpose. And so we've got, you know, we've got a lot of these kind of competing tensions that exist now. And these are some organizations, I think, that are making some really good headway in trying to you know, work with these meta capabilities at the same time. So I wanted to give you a sense of what one CEO has to say about this, and then see what
you introduced
we
three
can
words
do.
in 2010 into the PepsiCo vocabulary of performance with purpose. Do a paragraph on that.
I go back to those three trends, you know, shifting the health and wellness trends, the environmental trends, and the fact that we had to create a different environment for our people. I also realized something else that was going on. As we surveyed our employees, every one of them were looking for a purpose, something in life that made them feel good about the company. Remember, we don't make life-saving drugs. We don't provide technology that changes your life. We make fun products. So we wanted to give people a real purpose why coming to work at PepsiCo was the greatest thing. So what we did is we said, why don't we make the shifting of the portfolio, offering more nutritious products, offering more grains, offering more fruit and vegetable offerings, really becoming an environmentally conscious company and creating an environment in PepsiCo where everybody can bring their whole self to work. Part of the agenda as to how we make money, not how we spend the money, how we make money. And that got encapsulated in these three words: performance with purpose. It all starts with performance. We want to deliver the greatest financial returns, but we want to deliver those profits while we transform our product portfolio, worry about the planet, and worry about our people. And that was simply performance with purpose. And the fundamental difference between corporate social responsibility and performance with purpose is that performance with purpose is about how we make the money, not how we spend the money that we make. So if we don't transform our portfolio, we cannot make profits. If we're not environmentally sustainable, we won't get a license to open a plant. and we won't reduce the cost of our packaging. And if we don't create a phenomenal workplace for our people, we won't be able to hire the best and the brightest. So our purpose became how we deliver the profits. Too often, I think people confuse purpose with corporate social responsibility, which is a problem because you could run the company anyway and then just do a charity program in some country and then feel good. That's corporate social responsibility. To me, that's like going to confession after you've made a mistake. I think what we are talking about is weave purpose into how you run the company, into how you make money. Then it's a sustainable model. And that's what performance and purpose is all about.
Okay. All right. So what's Indra really doing there? What's her role there when she's answering that question? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I thought her trick was to turn the question around, turn its head. It's about making money, not spending. You know, everyone was all about what are you doing, and she's sort of turning it around to say it's how we make money, which just allows you to come at the whole question with fresh eyes.
Right. Yeah. It's at the core of our business model now, right? And so it's one of the key roles when we try to decipher this culture code of game-changing organizations. What she's doing, she's storyteller in chief in the organization. She's telling a powerful story about not only where we came from, but where we need to go and why. And that's that whole collective ambition thing of having that sense of telling a powerful story that is linked right into the business, connected up with our customers. And so the first thing they do, great game-changing leaders, is they create cultures of storytelling. They're very powerful about it, and they link it to their business and their customers, so it's not just talking, puffing smoke. So, okay, first thing. Second, now, is building a collective leadership capability inside the organization. So let's take a look. We'll move through. I wanted to spend a little bit more time on the first one than the second. This is a perfect model of yesterday's leadership, in terms of, okay, I just don't, how do I tell them? I don't know where we're going. The thing is that we don't need leaders like this anymore in our organization. My argument is we don't need followers like that either. I mean, that's the thing that, in fact, we need this sense of interaction. We need, and it's not just among the top team, as you were saying before. We need people who want voice. They want more say in the organization, and building that notion of a collective leadership capability is really key. I wouldn't be a proper academic if I didn't give you at least one 2x2, so I'll give it, and I promise it's the only one I'll give you. But the way I like to think about this is kind of the trade-off between the quality, depth of dialogue and conversation and the extent of accountability that exists in an organization is the path toward building a collective leadership capability. We never want to be in the lower left with this, where there's very little dialogue and no accountability or expectations for change. So that's what I call a bad marriage. We don't talk about it anymore, and we don't care. So that's a no-brainer that we don't want to be there. This is where a lot of organizations get in trouble, though. Lots and lots and lots of expectation. What does this have to do with hitting my numbers with my sales team in Thailand? But I don't want to hear it. I don't want to talk about that. Just hit your numbers. That's, lots of accountability, high expectations, but no dialogue to actually talk about what's happening at the customer interface in organizations. And so people start to just double down and do what it is that they do really well in those hardened silos, and it becomes a zero-sum warfare with others. And that's what I call blame game culture, where no matter what, lots of, there's going to be expectations to hit my numbers in my silo, and I just don't want to hear what problem set you have. The third, and this is, I think, hopefully only the US reference that I'll make, and it's even more micro than that. It's a Texas reference where you know, we know the imagery of the cowboy, but not the real cowboy, but the one that wants to pretend to be a cowboy, the 10-gallon hat. You know, so the Texans have a phrase that's called "big hat, no cattle," and so that means lots and lots and lots of talk, but very few expectations to actually bring about change, to actually create a sense of accountability inside of an organization. We don't want to be there either, you know. So where we want to be in most of these 2x2s is up top. You know, we want to have healthy, robust dialogue and discussion, but also a sense of edge. That's what PepsiCo's talking about. If you know anything about PepsiCo, this is a very strong performance-driven organization. Used to be what they call a burn and churn organization from a talent point of view until Indra came in, but now this is an you know. So how do we create that sense of healthy, robust dialogue, but with lots of expectations to deliver? I'm not going to have you do this exercise, but normally I'd ask you to say, what can you do to bring about change in your organization? So this tells a story. How do we take care of one another? Or how do we think about, you know, these are, I don't know if anybody here is a PBS fan, but the meerkats are, I think, a really good indication of folks who really watch out for one another and behave as a village in a sense. And they, I think, are a nice little metaphor for how we build a collective leadership capability inside. So the third is this idea of building next generation organizations, creating the discipline that is needed to actually innovate and to grow and to live to fight another day when externalities really get intense. So with that, you know, we talked about building organizations that are going to stand out, that are going to be different, folks that get noticed and create differentiated value. In order to do that, we need to build next generation organization capabilities that are going to propel us forward. You can't just get better and better and better at doing the things that you're already good at. And so, McKinsey took a look at this. You know, that last statement I made almost sounds like a no-brainer. Well, of course, but McKinsey's study took a look at, you know, the challenges around organization capability building and found that, you know, 2/3 of companies say, absolutely, we need to do it. Yet less than 1/3 of companies actually engaged in next generation organization capability. Why on earth would that be the case? This is a stunning data point as far as I'm concerned. But why do you think this is, when we know that we need to revitalize our organizations and build next generation capabilities, yet so few people in companies actually do it? Yeah, go ahead. And if you could speak up just a tad, that would be great.
It requires a lot of commitment, and it is very costly in terms of hours that you spend on your working force, doing the training, and it's actually a real cost paying those trainings. So
it's hard.
They have to sign and you have to sign the expenditure bill. You will say, maybe not. That course is not that important.
Not hard. It's hard to do, you know, basically, number one. As a kid, my father used to make me mow the lawn, and I'd sit there and I'd mope for an hour, and I realized eventually I could have been done with mowing the lawn by the time I'd stop moping, and so, you know, but it's hard to do. So yeah, go ahead. What else?
What I've seen is there is a lot of pushback. People say that the way we do it is the right way to do it, and to change, there is a lot of people just go ahead and just take it away and they say this is not going to work, this is not going to work. It's hard to change because they actually
Yeah, if you're RBC, Dave Mackay is leading an organization that is the largest, most profitable, most admired company right now already in Canada. And the first thing he said to me when he asked me to come and kind of think through stuff with them was, you know, I want to transform RBC. already most profitable, largest, most admired by their peers company in Canada, and he wants to totally transform it. You know, so I mean so this is thinking out into the future and willing to commit to the hard work that it's going to take in order to be able to do that. Other things. What do you? Yeah, go ahead in the back.
You know, if you look at the demographics of leadership,
right?
Not all leaders have the courage or the skill to make that happen.
Yeah.
Right? You need to have a balance of power, a balance of harmony, seeking of different intents to actually cause organizational change. And there are many people who get into that seat and don't have that mixture.
Right. Yeah. 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 They don't have the capability to actually do it. They feel as though, you know, the culture perhaps is so strong. They feel as though there might be very powerful, you know, stakeholders that are going to push us in another direction. Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
A lot of the costs are indirect. When you think about hiring people, getting the right people in an organization, and then training them, you don't think about the amount of the cost it is to fire someone after you hire them, retrain them, and it's your boss's time and your time and everyone else's time that gets wasted.
Yeah.
So they're not direct costs, but they're indirect, and I think a lot of people don't really notice that.
Yeah.
As they should.
Yeah. 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 And that furthers itself, you know, when we're taking a look at if we have silo-driven organizations. I just finished another article in the Sloan Management Review about building what it takes to build the next generation enterprise leaders. One of the folks I interviewed was a senior vice president from Pfizer who actually took one of his stars to help a colleague running a fledgling business unit in Japan at no benefit to his unit whatsoever, but took one of his brightest stars because it was going to help his colleague, but also be a great developmental experience for this young woman to do it. To me, that's the essence of building next generation capability, where the scorecard, you know, isn't as precise as a zero-sum type of proposition. But you need, in that 2x2, you need healthy dialogue to be able to say, okay, we're going to do this. We're actually looking for leaders like this who are going to build, you know. So Ian Reed, the CEO, actually gave me those people to interview to say, you know, these are the types of leaders that we're trying to grow more of out into the future. Even when it might hurt individual units at a certain point in time, it's going to overall help the enterprise. And it creates that culture of collective leadership that we're in this together. And we'll sort out the numbers a little bit later, but very hard to do. So you're right. And it's, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. The reality is CEOs are both.
Yeah.
Executive management are the former.
Yeah.
Right? They're afraid of losing their jobs. They're afraid of not meeting their numbers. They're afraid of getting a bad performance review. So, you know, if there's a trade-off between sending off somebody for 6 months to do a project that doesn't benefit them versus having to work on one of their projects, they're almost always going to choose that.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
the culture has to drive it beyond the top 20 people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. All of that is true when you have hardened silos inside of an organization. None of it is true otherwise, you know. And so that's, you know, that's when you begin to think. But that's where you have to begin to think, you know, are we building an organization that where we're going to trust our senior leaders that they're going to do the right thing on behalf of the enterprise more broadly, and we're going to take a longer-term view. We'll be longer-term greedy than short-term greedy. Other thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
I think somebody talked about skills of the leader, and I think to do this well, there's skills at so many levels in the organization.
Yeah.
The softer skills. I mean, if the organizational model 20 or 30 years ago was very hierarchy, command and control,
Yeah.
many of these games require, you know, much broader reach in the organization. The skills of listening.
Yeah.
The skills of asking good questions.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other skills that are needed to have a shot at resolving some of these paradoxes between short-term, long-term, and principled versus pragmatic. And
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, just two little anecdotal comments. One of my colleagues here, Hal Gregerson, spends most of his time talking exactly about that in terms of, you know, that great leadership is about asking really penetrating great questions. And so a lot of great leaders are those that are capturing as much information from as many sources, not being isolated by their own top team. In this article that I just mentioned, I talked about these 5 things, but then said, even that's not enough. That what we need is to actually kind of crawl into the mindset of who these leaders are, and came up with a whole subset of the exact things you're talking about. These people had a strong sense of purpose. They had an amazingly strong sense of place. They had a superior sense of context in terms of how the different pieces of the company fit together, but also where their company fit in the broader world stage, which gave them another sense of perspective. And they also had a sense of community, that we're in this together instead of, I win, you lose type of thing. Most important, and to a person, I interviewed about 50 of these folks, they had an abiding sense of resiliency. That, in other words, if they stubbed their toe, they, instead of hiding under a rug, they were able to pivot to the future, learn from that potential periodic temporary failure, and pivot. And with that resiliency, we often talk, another big buzzword these days is how do we create agile organizations? My submission is you can't have an agile organization without resilient people, because agility requires a certain level of resiliency of leaders who are able to say, okay, we used to do it this way, it's not working anymore. We better start looking for new ways to lead in an organization. This is unbelievably true with the millennials coming into the workforce today. All of the things that we learned about leadership from 30 years ago, they just plain old don't apply anymore. And so this idea of building a collective leadership capability isn't a nice bolt-on. I mean, it's like it has to get embedded into how we lead out into the future. So that's, I think you guys nailed it. I think there's a lot of, the upper level executives, as you were talking about before, are, they're the ones that created this strategy. So they're going to be, I've done a lot of what we call capability maps, taking a look at what capabilities an organization has, and what they need to excel out into the future. If I cut that by level of hierarchy, it's stunning, in that the higher you are in the organization, the more that you tend to agree that the current strategy and the current capabilities are just fine. Why is that? Because they created them. And so the resistance to bringing about change is usually there at the top couple levels. It's not the folks working at the client interface. They see the problems and they know that they need change. It's how do we sort of break through that layer of clay that we often talk about in the organization. Culture, as you talked about before, culture makes it really hard to bring about change. We haven't done it that way. We never did it that way. We've always done it this way. Go back into your corner. Talk is cheap. We're going to be the innovation leader. We're going to be the customer service leader. It's really, it's easy to say those things. It's unbelievably hard to then put one foot in front of the other and build the capabilities to actually, bring about that change in capabilities to make it happen. And we're incredibly comfortable with routine. We're hardwired to seek it and to look for it. And once we find it, it's hard to kind of roust us out of, our cars drive themselves without Google, but our cars often drive themselves to the office. We walk in, our seats are comfortable, we get our coffee, we get our tea, and it feels good to have that sense of routine. And so to break that up is really hard to do. So a quick case example of this, and I'll just breeze through this, but it's this building next generation capabilities. If you think about Kia, they didn't even make cars 40, 50 years ago. They were making just parts for bicycles. So this is a company that is unbelievably successful now. In the Asian financial crisis, not so much. But if you think about what they did, they were able to actually target what they needed to do to bring about change, There was a talent play in this, in that they hired Peter Schreier, who was Audi's kind of real guru for design. And if you know, Audi is known for its just sleek, beautiful design. You know, and they then built these future engines of growth, which is next generation capabilities that could make the organization go out into the future. And this is a money machine now. So this is an organization, they've won every award, you know, in terms of not only, you know, a car that's fun for young people, but a car that increasingly young moms are enjoying. You know, this car. And what, you know, if we take that notion of collective ambition and to think about this from the point of view of purpose at the core, vision and strategy at the north-south axis, and then brand and principles on the you know, east-west axis, you can begin to see a place like Kia. What they did is they said, okay, let's actually do the hard work and do the analysis. Let's talk to our people. Let's talk to our customers. Let's talk to our suppliers about what it is that we're really good at, but what really matters for the future. So the importance for them to change is the red as it goes out. The blue is where we're really good already. I don't know if you can see it or not, but over here it says, you know, where the blue actually exceeds where number 1 or 2 in Korea and all the others are. Is that a typo? I mean, what would you read from that if you saw that really quickly?
You're saying the Korean one? I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
That's where we've grown, that's where we are, it's the easiest thing for us to do, so we were focused there.
Yeah, yeah. We're already really good at it, you know. Not that it's not important. Remember the starburst chart.
But I'm also saying that maybe because it's easy, because we've focused on that, it's our natural bent.
Exactly.
So we naturally flow there, even though we need to
That's right.
grow in the other area.
We're going to get better and better and better at the stuff that we're already good at, whereas the next generation capabilities that we need to build. So how do we preserve that, yet not put disproportionate resources into just getting that much better in building that capability? So in a time of limited resources, we have to begin to think about, you know, making some tough calls.
Top 5 in the US.
Yeah. Yeah, so that delta, yeah, exactly. So that creates a capability gap, basically. So you can take a look at that and say, okay, we've got a lot of work to do. It's uber important. It's really important, and we're not terribly great at it. So that capability gap should signal that this is something that is vital to our. So you think about the McKinsey study, you know, that means that 1/3 of the companies would just completely ignore that data point. You know, they'd say, yeah, but it's too hard. You know, we can't do that. We'll never become, you know, within the top 5 in the US. And so it's that type of thing that that we need to think about. Yeah.
Is the profitability missing from this chart?
Is the profitability missing? Well, no, that would be listed down below. If we were going to do each one of these things, we would take a look at what the. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, in the strategic and operational priorities, one of them would be making sure that we boost you know, I mean, pick a number, but you know, by 5% compounded each year. You know, so that's a great point. I just use this as one of the examples. But if we're actually doing this with a company, we'd fill out that whole thing. Profitability would clearly be, you know, one of the issues that we'd talk about. Let's stand up for a sec. Just stand up, midpoint through, stand up. Do whatever you'd like for the next minute, just to have a little break. Stretch. That's Peter Schreier, by the way, that they stole. No, no. Yeah. Okay, great. I've come to realize that video has absolutely no learning value, but I love it anyway. So, I just love it. No, it actually does, because if you've worked with, I mean, the real story here, if you've worked with a lot of organizations, and Korean chaebols in particular, and I've spent years and years with some of the big ones, baking in fun into an organization, baking in a sense of team, and baking in a sense of vitality has been a huge challenge for them. So building this sense of collective leadership, and I think is something that is really, and so this is kind of an indication of the fact that they put lots of resources into having fun, and the results have been really very positive. So, okay, so that's a third. How do we have the discipline required to actually fuel innovation and growth and live to fight another day? So when times get tough, because we're not always innovating, we're not always growing. Sometimes we have to use that capability to be able to say, all right, we're gonna batten down the hatches, and we'll be disciplined to make some tough calls as well as all the fun ones. So the fourth thing is what I like to call aligning promises made with promises kept inside of an organization. We can have a great purpose statement. We can build this sense of, of a culture of collective leadership. We can, talk about next generation capabilities. But if we don't walk the talk inside of our organizations, we're still going to not get it all quite done. And so let's take a look at that, and that's something that I also want to. For those of you who might not see it in the back, says I want the public to think of us as a company with a heart. I want you to think of us as a company that'll chew you up and smear you into the carpet if you screw up, right? I mean, so that's the essence of where so many of us live, where we've got that great purpose statement, and yet it doesn't feel anything remotely like that inside. So that's where you start to have a brain drain of some of your best talents. And so we can turn to that a little bit when we think about the talent challenge inside companies. So what is it when you guys are all leaders in companies, and you think about how do we get the very best talent? What is it in an organization that attracts game changers to your company? What is it? What are they looking for? Yeah, go ahead.
That's a very challenging question because it depends. It depends on who you're trying to attract.
Okay, give it a shot though.
No, you just mentioned that millennials have different objectives from previous generations, and they have different expectations. So how do you do that? Is you need to have whatever they're expected to have.
Yeah. But give it a try. What do you think? I mean, it depends. Does begin to respond, but dig one. What do you think? If you said it before.
Again, it depends on what I'm trying to achieve. What's my purpose? If
Okay.
My purpose, I find I put my values or whatever I'm going to offer.
Yeah.
And based on that, I'm going to need to attract those people that I want them to perform.
Yeah, okay, all right. So that sense of purpose. I mean, I don't buy this notion that millennials are the only ones that care about purpose. I'm a baby boomer, and I fully thought I was going to change the world, and I was, I was like attracted to this sense.
Nowadays they expect to be the CEO.
Yeah.
3 days after.
Yeah, that's right.
They give you 3 days.
I know. I was teaching to the MBAs here, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and I was teaching a GE case, and some of the MBAs were saying, why in God's name would I want to go to work for GE? But, this is an organization that's a pretty cool place now. It is transforming itself, and, but go ahead, up top.
Well, I think, of course, one is the monetary compensation, money.
Yeah.
The second, the challenges or the accountability that you're going to give that person.
Okay.
And that has to do with a lot of sense of purpose. and also the respect you provide to that person as a professional and as a person.
Yeah, good, good. Okay, that's really good. What about up here then?
As to risk taking, or because some organizations, if they want to really be game changers, they need to be actually taking risks.
Yeah.
Some companies they say they want to be game changers, but when in reality you go to them, they don't take any risks.
Right.
And so you want to make sure that you end up in an environment where they're actually taking risk and actually rewarding you
Yeah.
in the compensation part
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah, yeah, I've got a story exactly around that. Yeah, I'll tell it. It'll only take a minute. But where I was actually helped to launch and design this entrepreneurial leaders program for one of the major financial services organizations. The vice chairman comes up, and these are the high potentials inside. And remember the title of the program, Entrepreneurial Leadership Program. Vice chairman goes, I am so proud of you. You're our crown jewels. Let me tell you why. We have just received the designation of the lowest loan loss ratio bank in the country, and I'm saying I couldn't be more proud of you. You know, and it was this notion of saying, you know, the thing that they really valued was a certain level of conservatism that, you know, and all these people were in there to learn about, you know, disciplined, you know, about innovation and risk taking and that sort of thing. So we have to be very careful about the messages that we're giving our folks. So yeah, I think you said it. I mean, look, you know, what people are looking for is not only how do I connect up my individual sense of meaning? How can I extract meaning, individual meaning from organizational purpose? That, you know, you don't have to self-actualize at work, but you want to feel really good that you're making contributions and that you're working for a place that in some way matters. Brand is huge, and brand is massive in emerging markets these days. It might be a little different, but the brand that I see, the power of brand, is it's our time now. So places, you know, I wrote another HBR article a couple years ago called "Are You a High Potential?" One of the things I found was in high potential talent was that they were naturally attracted to environments that were talent magnets that brought in other high potential talent. So I'm going to be here with a bunch of really cool people, really smart people, really fast moving people, and it creates a buzz in the place. And so we want to be in a place that has a brand, and that brand could be, this is Buzz, we're next generation, kind of a HubSpot, which is one of our local iconic companies around here. But it could also be a Tencent in China. You know, it could be, you know, an Infosys, whereas they used to want to go to work for Accenture. Now they want to be with a local Indian company, you know, because it's our time now. So there's a lot of that's going on inside organizations. And the third, as you put it, was the opportunity. The opportunity could be pay, it could be growth, could be development, could be a chance to kind of globalize my mindset for an international experience. So if these three factors are the really key attractions, what do you think would be the thing if we turn the tables to say, what will retain the best talents? What, you know, beyond money, what will retain folks in an organization to keep them there? Yeah, go ahead.
The input that they're generating, that they are generating individually.
Yeah, that's okay. That's, you know, that they, yeah, no, that's good that they're making a difference, okay, in the organization. Other things, yeah. Go ahead.
We're just finding that commitment to team is more and more important.
Yeah.
At the lower levels.
Yes, yeah. Building a sense of team, and what were you going to say?
Freedom to do things.
Yeah, okay. And all of those things, that all three, to me, I put it into this kind of not only culture itself, but the authenticity of the culture, whether it's teams, you know, it's freedom, whether it's a capacity for me to make a difference, makes a massive difference inside of an organization. So when I say, you know, power and perils of organizational culture, if I, just to show how, tell me what company you think of. Yeah, it took, what, 2 seconds? Yeah, okay. Tell me what company you think of. Volvo, yeah, took 3 seconds, okay, all right. That's how powerful the association is when you get a culture. Volvo's not even the safest car in the world. It's something like the 7th safest car in the world, but they own that label, so it's just amazing. And so when we begin to think about, the culture and the climate of an organization, it becomes something that's really powerful. I'd like to have you just think, just for fun, to see if we can come up with a definition of culture. And are most people familiar with the word bingo, the game bingo? When you have the sort of letters B-I-N-G-O, and then there's numbers in the vertical columns, and when you get it, you yell out bingo, and everybody's got, yeah, let's do bingo. So let's see if you can create a sentence that might define organizational culture out of this jumble word game. I'll give you 1 minute to think. You can either do it alone or you can do it as a team. Yes, yeah. Sorry, I didn't ask you to bring pencil and paper. Yell out bingo if you think if you're remotely close to something. Yes, you can. You can. Yeah, you can.
Bingo.
Bingo. All right. We have one bingo. See if we have another. Who's the other bingo? Yeah, and bingo. Okay, bingo, bingo, bingo. All right, go ahead.
Culture manifested through the relationship among normative behaviors that rewards articulated values, shared beliefs, with consequences.
Okay. All right, good. All right, we'll give that a try. There's one bingo up there, second bingo.
Culture is the relationship among shared beliefs and articulated values manifested through normative behaviors and that rewards the consequences.
Okay, all right. Okay, another one. There we go. And then the third bingo.
Normative behaviors manifested through shared beliefs.
Doesn't sound like all the words, so we're going to have to go up here.
You laughed when I said I should use more.
I said you had to use it. Go ahead, go ahead.
Relationship among normative behaviors, articulated values, shared beliefs, rewards,
And
consequences.
okay, all right, we'll go. I'll have to get you another. So there are goodies that we give out. So our here you go. Yeah. There we go. You can sort that out, and you guys can fight for the third hat up and down. No, I think it's really important because we've thought about culture as something that it's the way we do things around here. But I think culture is thought of as the relationship among our shared beliefs, articulated values, and the normative behaviors as manifested through a series of rewards and consequences. If you don't have the rewards and consequences, then it's just a bunch of talk. And so it's not just the way we do things around here. It's the way we do things around here that are praised and reinforced and where there are consequences for bad behavior. And I know this is MIT, and so for the scientist in the room, I can put this into a nice little formula so that we can look at this in such a way that lets us to think about it in a simple way. Four Seasons, I think it's one of the companies I studied for this collective ambition. It's a company I think is just terrific. It's an organization founded by Izzy Sharp in maybe the 60s, I think it is. He's an iconic name in the luxury hospitality industry. If I were to have said to you Four Seasons, you'd probably say leader in hospitality. And so this is, but if you think about, I often say, who has stayed in a Four Seasons? Who knows the Four Seasons? Everybody raises their hand. But then I'll say, all right, who stayed in a Four Seasons in 2008 during the global financial crisis? All the hands go down. You did, so you okay. That's the essence of Four Seasons problem that they faced. 60 years in a row of incredible returns, but externalities really had them in the tank. And instead of hiding under a rug, Izzy and his team said, we're going to double down on our core purpose, but we're also going to make some really tough calls. And so it's this notion of purpose, performance, and principles, that they had to face when 2008 hit, and they found themselves looking at red ink for the first time. And so the things that they did is their sense of principles, what they call was their golden rule. It was, treat others the way that you would like and expect to be treated. They doubled down on their core purpose, luxury hospitality to our clients around the world. But they created this notion of a collective leadership capability by creating what they called a guiding team, which was a lot of their senior leaders, and then they cascaded it down through the organization. And Izzy and that guiding team went on a global roadshow. Lots of dialogue and lots of expectations, that 2x2 matrix to actually help to transform the company, to take a look. So they had, they understood the danger of this starburst chart, and they had lots of things on their agenda. So they began to say, look, we're going to take these 15 really important initiatives, but incorporate them within these 3 bold ambitions that we're going to go after. And we're going to create action teams that are going to, just get spread right throughout the organization, and to try to make that happen. And this is a remarkable story. I mean, this is a very successful company now, but it was a company that ran the risk of going under just 7 short years ago. And so that's, I think, the power of using culture, of using principles, and recommitting to a guiding sense of purpose. So something like an organization's purpose just doesn't change. Very rarely will its principles or core values change. And we think about strategy and the performance vectors that we put in place, not unlike what you were talking about with talent, as tacking, as variables that we need to change every now and then. So let's turn attention for the last 10 minutes into just the 5th thing, which is this idea of building a world-class talent factory. This is an actual quote from the number 2 in charge of a major organization that I was working with to help bring about a wholesale transformation. I won't name the company because it's not a terribly flattering quote. If you think about the challenge, headhunters is not a viable talent strategy. So you can use them periodically, but if you rely on external headhunters for the bulk of your talent strategy, you're going to wind up being in trouble. This isn't just the feel-good part of the story. When we get to the people part, people's eyes tend to glaze over. But McKinsey, Egon Zehnder, the Hay Group, they've all done studies that indicate that the stronger the investment in the human capital component of an organization, the stronger the productivity, the stronger the profitability and growth, and the more positive the organizational climate. And those correlations are very powerful. So it's not just good for the soul, it's really good for the business to invest in human capital. One of the more recent HBRs that I wrote was called Building a Game-Changing Talent Strategy, as it underpins this idea. And BlackRock, a perfect example of that, an organization, I profile BlackRock as kind of the key example of this. This is a very performance-driven organization. Yet Larry Fink, the founder, is incredibly passionate about the human capital component of the organization and has built this thing called the Human Capital Committee, which is the top 42 leaders in the company who are the people that literally drive the talent strategy for BlackRock on a global basis. So this is, again, not a softy science. It's something that's incredibly powerful to do. Talent factories, when we use that word, I mean, this stems from kind of a core talent HBR that I wrote this now about almost 7, 8 years ago that is used a lot around the world now. But it's the idea was we studied probably 50 different companies and looked at what was it that really drove these companies that we call talent factories. What we found was that what they did incredibly well. They didn't need to boil the ocean with everything. So if you think of a Google, they don't spend a real lot of money on formalized training these days, but they spend a huge amount of money on getting the right people with the right fit, with the right cultural affinity into the organization. It's what they call brains on sticks who like to play together. I mean, that's really what they're looking for, are people that are very, very bright, but collective in their thinking. And so it's finding out, it kind of speaks to your it depends thing that you're saying there. What do we need at this point in time to have a robust talent strategy? We'll worry about the kind of formalized training as we go down the road, but we need to get the best and brightest minds into this place now. So that was functionality. But the other point that we found was that wasn't enough, but the talent factories actually combined high functionality with what we called high vitality. And that was characterized by deep C-suite commitment, broad-based engagement, like the Human Capital Committee at BlackRock, but then accountability for leaders developing leaders. Not an HR play. This is leaders are solely responsible for the development of their next generation of leaders. So vitality and functionality really creates this idea of a talent magnet inside. So I think I'll pass through the Paul Pullman video because we won't have the time. But this basically, Paul was just talking about as they began to think about the change of Unilever strategy, they really committed to a strong sense of purpose, and that has really led them to become a powerful talent magnet where they get 2 million resumes per year into the place and a wholesale transformation of the organization. So what do the talent magnets do? The fifth thing that great game-changing leaders do, their talent strategies serve as the glue and the grease that really makes the engine go. Line leaders in deep, they're not delegating this to HR, although they have really strong HR leadership who happen to be in the seat of HR, but they're business people through and through. So Monday, in addition to the CEO of RBC, I'm bringing 3 BlackRock folks to come to this game-changing course that I'm doing where 2 are from the Human Capital Committee and 1 is the Senior VP for HR. And as a partnership, they're talking about how they build a talent strategy that really helps to drive a game-changing organization. Together, they create that idea of a special place that people talked about inside the company. So purpose-driven, performance-oriented, principles-led. We might think this is a new thing, a new idea. This is an idea that is as old as the hills, but sometimes we forget it. This quote, an organization render any service widely useful must be large in scope, great in purpose. Henry Ford, okay? This is something that if you stay true to your principles and your sense of purpose, this is very, very powerful for us to think about. So game changers, the 5 things. Powerful storytellers, they build a collective leadership capability. They're disciplined in driving decision-making for innovation and growth. They align promises made and kept, and they are passionate about building a world-class talent factory. So this idea of transformation is very scary, but I think if we stick to it, we can preserve the core inside of an organization and make it fit for the future, make it something that can really work. And so I've got one final thought that we can leave you with as
Recently,
we
we
go.
videotaped it with new monkeys who had never done the task, thinking that maybe they would have a stronger reaction, and that turned out to be right. The one on the left is the monkey who gets cucumber. The one on the right is the one who gets grapes. The one who gets cucumber, note that the first piece of cucumber is perfectly fine. The first piece she eats. Then she sees the other one getting grape, and you will see what happens. So she gives a rock to us, that's the task. And we give her a piece of cucumber, and she eats it. The other one needs to give a rock to us. And that's what she does. And she gets a grape. And she eats it. The other one sees that. She gives a rock to us now, gets again cucumber. She tests the rock now against the wall. She needs to give it to us. And she gets cucumber again. So this is basically the Wall Street protest that you see here.
No, I think when we're setting out to build these game-changing organizations, remember, cucumbers seem just fine until we get to taste grapes, right? And so I think it's like, we want to make sure, do the hard work. It's really hard, but invest in building what I think are, the next generation, which is game-changing organizations, and I think we'll be just fine. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Take care.